Yes, it's nice to be back with all of you. And so let's do this. Let's just give ourselves permission to get comfortable, settle into the body, inviting the energies of the retreat to continue, just to gently integrate in the background. Noticing the peace that's here and the spaciousness that's here. This quiet presence of love. And taking a moment to acknowledge that you are divine, that you are holy. That what's here is innately good. Innately good. Inviting awareness to be vast and spacious. Like the night sky. Our thoughts may come and go, emotions may come and go, but just being with what you are. This gentle, awake, aware presence. Noticing the radiance of the heart. This gentle love which is here. And just acknowledging all the places within that could soften a little bit. Breathing into the neck and the shoulders, the solar plexus and the belly. Inviting this light that you are to wake up in the solar plexus, the hara, softening, melting. And then gently reflecting upon how much work you've done over this last couple days. This retreat has been powerful, it's been profound. That something big has shifted inside. In a very humble way, being proud of the steps you've taken, of opening yourselves to love, to something greater. And again, just checking in with the solar plexus in the belly, softening there. Opening and including that which is human and that which is divine. Breathing, feeling, opening, and experiencing. As you feel into the heart, just noticing this very simple, basic love and radiance. And a great question for you is this love, this radiance always here? Isn't that the truth? There's a quiet presence of love in the space of the heart, which is eternally here. And simply melting into this. Melting into this love, this light, this beauty. Noticing the spaciousness, the silence, infused with this radiant love. And for those of you who felt the retreat was hard or difficult, I invite you to call for very gentle and nurturing light to hold the body, to support the body. Sometimes when the light comes so intensely, the nervous system can feel a little bit cooked. So calling forth a grace that is nurturing, gentle and soothing. And what you'll find is sometimes God will offer that, and other times God will cook you a little bit more. We're doing our best to open, to receive, to melt. And so, I invite you to open a little more fully, relax throughout the body. And then when you're ready, you can just gently open your eyes, come into the room, and I welcome you to Satsang. I welcome your heart, your beauty, your innocence and divinity. And I also welcome any struggle. You know, the way an old friend would welcome you. It's okay to admit, yes, that life is a paradox. Life is a paradox. And so anyways, I welcome questions, but also, folks from the retreat, if anyone wants to share their experience or what's come forward this day or throughout the retreat, I'd be happy to hear from you. Be happy to hear from you. I smile. 'Cause Richard is so quick with the raise the hand button. You're making me smile, Richard. Um, but I encourage you, if you feel called, share of yourself. Share of yourself. Yes. Okay. So we'll hear from Richard. Hi, Richard.
Hi. Hey everyone, and Facebook friends. Yeah. The retreat was just so incredibly profound and powerful. And I just experienced some really beautiful shifts. I feel like my sense of, self, that kind of center really loosening very significantly, and all of this tension in my throat that I constantly deal with, also kind of decreasing significantly. Just kind of more spaciousness there, which is a really big deal in my life. We'll see how everything continues to integrate as the weeks move forward, or as the days move forward. I know not to count my chickens before they're hatched. Things can reify. Things can come right back, can't they? And I'll be interested to see as I leave the retreat energies, kind of how things stabilize and integrate. So though, my question, I think what I wanted to, yes. So what I wanted to ask about is, when I experience really big energies, whether that's in a retreat setting or outside of a retreat setting, I usually find myself acting out some kind of, you could say, shadow, adaptation to deal with stress would be a better way of putting it for me. Some kind of addiction, some kind of behavioral acting out that in the past has just had to do with coping and regulating, but it's negative. It is shadow kind of surfacing and material surfacing. And I can remember one time I was watching a Transformers movie with my family in the theaters, and something happened in the movie, and something happened to me internally spontaneously, and I went to the bathroom for like 30 minutes and just like was twitching out all of this energy kind of coming forward, and it was really powerful. And then I got home and I smoked weed. You know what I mean? It was just like the first thing that I did. I was like, wow. And that often happens for me in some way, shape, or form. And so my question really is like, I would like to get better at sitting with big energies as they're moving through, because that's just like a part of the path, right? Like,
Sure.
this is just going to be a regular part of my life as I continue to move forward. And I don't want to have to be constantly, doing, acting something out in order to cope. And to some extent, that's a choice. So I'm not saying I'm a victim of this.
Yeah.
It's more just like I'm looking for your, wisdom in regards to how to deal with these things. So that's my question today. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. And I'm glad you bring that up, Richard, because I was supposed to speak about this at the end of the retreat, but I guess I forgot. Or maybe this is, the end of the retreat. Um, so it's interesting. In the Tibetan tradition that I studied in, uh, we'd have these really complex rituals and practices, and sometimes a ritual or just like a practice, a ceremony would go on for 12 hours or 24 hours, and they were so ornate and exact and precise. And I mean, it was a lot of, I'll just say this, a lot of hoopla, just a lot of, stuff that went on. And, it was quite intense, and you feel the pressure and the energies building like throughout the day. And then after the ceremonies, oftentimes either that evening or maybe the following night, um, we'd have something that was called a soak. And it's a very, I always thought that was a strange word. I don't even know how to spell it, to be honest, but um, basically it was a party. We'd sit down, we'd, do some singing and chanting. And then right afterwards would come out these plates of of like lots of meats and delicate like just like overly heavy foods. And it was funny because the tradition, in theory, like most everyone in the room was vegetarian, but this night they'd eat meat. Now me, I'm such a fundamentalist that I wasn't going to eat any of that meat. But they'd bring in cakes, and they'd get out bottles of wine. And the first time it happened, I was like, "What is going on here?" It was just wildness. It was just like this wild, and let me be clear here. It was wild for a spiritual setting. That the only time I've seen wine before in a spiritual setting was in the Catholic Church, and they only give you, a little cup of it, a little sip. And it wasn't like anyone was getting drunk or anything, but people were definitely having a glass of wine and then having another glass and maybe another glass. And again, um, my body doesn't do good with any of that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, well, give me the smallest amount of cake or cookie or something. But for me, it was really about just the coming together and the blowing off steam. And we'd sit on the floor, and we'd tell jokes and we'd laugh and we'd kind of roll around. And I even think I remember Lama Soltram, who's the teacher of this lineage. She mentioned something like, oh yes, like after many retreats, this was a time when many children were conceived, and actually conceived on the land. And so the retreat center, I can't remember, it's really massive. It's like 200 or 600 acres. It's out here in the middle of nowhere in southwest Colorado. And people lived in yurts, and a lot of it is like, I hope I'm not offending any of the people out there, but a lot of it's like hippies kind of living, and living in yurts, living off the land, and doing the practices and being a Tibetan Buddhist. I mean, my wife lived out there for a little bit. And there's just these wild energies that would arise after retreat. And it was a mother lineage, and by that, it wasn't like a Zen monastic lineage. It was a lineage that included children, and so there would be children kind of running in and out. Even during on retreats, it wouldn't be uncommon to see kids. And I thought it was kind of great, because it was this tantric form of just radical inclusivity. And within the tantra, I mean, the biggest part of tantra is basically it's the transformation of energies, and it's learning how to work with energies, learning how to let wild energies run, and learning how to let them run appropriately. And so I want to be crystal clear here. This is not the Bali, intimacy tantric, retreat center, where, we're all sleeping with each other. It's not that, but there was a wild component to it. And I think the wildness both attracted some people and actually helped people, get out of like that spiritual superego and being so stiff. Like if I wasn't allergic to alcohol, it probably would have been good for Craig Holiday, on one of those soak nights to drink a big glass of wine after a retreat and just enjoy it. But again, I didn't. It's just not my thing. And so that was like the tantric approach, is just to celebrate. So there'd be singing, there'd be dancing, there'd be just people kind of stumbling around a little bit and being up late in the dark, and just letting some of these energies kind of unravel. And again, it wasn't seen as a bad thing in any way in that lineage. Now, I'll say this. When I would go back, say, to a different, like more of a Spirit Rock Vipassana center here in Durango, and so I'd leave Aurobindo and kind of come home, and oftentimes they'd kind of sneer at the Tibetans and the wild parties the Tibetans had, and and so, you know, they didn't approve of it, and so you have to kind of find what works for you, and with my teacher, basically he taught, very similar instructions to what I gave everyone. Like, just take it real slow, be gentle with your body, spend time alone in nature after retreat or after a powerful experience. Like, whenever I have a really powerful experience, the only thing I want to do is go lay in the grass. If it's wintertime, I might just lay on a couch, but it's it's often facing a big window, connecting to the hugeness of the sky, and just inviting these energies just to unravel and to flow through me, to empty out into the night sky, to empty out into the big blue sky, to be held by the earth. And that's, how I have mostly worked with intense energies, is I get on the floor and I let my body shake. I let it do what it needs to do. I drool all over myself, just like let the body just melt, go almost catatonic. And, that's been helpful for me. That's kind of been my way. I will admit, after almost every retreat with my teacher, and I did many, so I was there because I worked there. I was there before the retreat, I was there during the retreat, and I was cleaning up. I'd clean up everything and take everyone to the airport and all that kind of stuff. So I was the last one on the land. And finally, my teacher would kick me off, say, "Hey, go home, Craig." And there was a huge sense of relief of just unplugging from the intensity of the retreat. And oftentimes, I would almost peel out, leaving his house. He had a big, long gravel driveway in the mountains, dirt road. But there's just a part of me that was just like, oh, like, I just need to get out of here and get out of the pressure cooker. And so I'd drive pretty fast, and I put the music on really loud in my car. Just drive home, listen to some wild rock and roll, and allowing my consciousness just to be huge and vast, and all these energies just kind of emptying out with the music. And that's, that's like another way that I worked with it. And oftentimes, especially if I came home at night, I would just go out at night and just like walk around, like walk the streets at night. And again, I would just feel like I was out there, almost like dancing with God, the hugeness of space and this vast mystery of being divine. And, I might be twirling around in the streets like someone who was drunk, but I wasn't drunk. I was drunk on divinity. And I would just, let the body be as wild as could be. And for me, it's been important to do two things. One is to melt into the earth and just be held by the earth. And the other thing is just like let the body run. So whether that going out in the street and running and walking and dancing, or getting on my bike and just like running laps, around the neighborhood, anything just to move the energy, and that's how I worked with it. I can certainly say this: I've definitely have never drank or smoked anything after a retreat or a powerful experience. To me, that would feel like violence to my body and my nervous system. I'm incredibly sensitive, and so I wouldn't do that. But I've certainly come home and eaten a whole bag of vegan chocolate treats or something like that. I've indulged in that way. But again, normally it just didn't make me feel good to kind of indulge the body. But uh, there were times that like we'd go out after retreat and like eat French fries and just me and a couple friends and just talk about the teachings and make spiritual jokes. And but we might go out and eat some heavy foods and get a dessert or something. And so if we look at, say, the energetics of it, being on retreat is very much like being in school for a whole year. And at the end of the year, like on the last day of school, like that school, like the building is just like a pressure cooker. And all those kids just want to get out and just run like crazy. And, I think it's important from a place of compassion to allow or to invite the ego to have a healthy sense of expression. Even, I don't even want to call it the ego, I'll call it the body. Let's say like the body is a finite organism. And what's happening is there's so much grace that's coming in from above or from below. And there's so much new energy that's waking up from within you. It definitely puts a pressure on the human mammal nervous system. And, it's important to find a way, I think a healthy way, to let that pressure be released. I think that's a good thing, to let it be released. Another thing I've really enjoyed is sitting in a hot tub, a sauna, jumping in a pool, jumping in the ocean, anything like that. I mean, I can remember I was on retreat with Adya once in upstate New York, and I rode the train down to New York City. I think I spent like a lot of the night just out walking in Manhattan in the pouring rain, just like seeing all the people and just all the sights and the colors and, talking to homeless guys on the street and just making friends and, running through Central Park. And, I just spent the whole day just like walking and just being as wild as could be in the city. And it's like my body needed that. It needed that. And so I think it's important to find your thing. But again, I'm going to caution against any intoxicants for the sole fact that you have so much light coming into you, and then if you try to dampen the light, sometimes the light will revolt. And I mean, in one sense, to the desire to smoke or to drink, that's the ego revolting, but we don't want the light revolting against the ego, because sometimes there can be a little bit of a power play of who's in charge. And I've been on the wrong side of that, myself personally, when like I wasn't easy with the forces of grace, and they kind of, gave me a swift kick in the stomach in one form or another. Sometimes when we don't respect our body, we can get like energetically sick, not like a virus sick, but just energy can get like stuck in different centers, and it can be really burning intensely for a while. Like if we try to dampen things with intoxicants, I found that we can get into trouble, whether that intoxicant is too much food, too much sugar, too much TV. Uh, some people just run it all out their mouth. That's a real common one. I've had to learn the hard way. Sometimes after retreat, I just need to shut my mouth because I've, run into people in the street and just start talking and just talking and just saying things that without any filter. And next thing you know, I'm offending someone and so anyways, you have to find what works for you. And I think it's just a common thing, just like that last day of school, where this pressure and pressure wants to release. And I like to, just from a place of mastery, just to look at, well, what does energy want? It simply wants to flow. And there's healthy channels for energy to flow. And, there's other channels where we're not really letting energy flow. We're actually dampening it. And that's, often not helpful. But like the desire to say smoke or the desire to drink, like if we're intimate with that desire, it's simply the desire to cut loose. And there's many ways we can cut loose. And there's also many ways we can soothe that aren't harmful. So, was that helpful at all, Richard? Yeah. Are you, what happened there? Let's see if I can fix this.
That was super helpful. And then I just want to ask very specifically, when in the retreat container or afterwards, when things are supercharged and unintegrated aspects come forward and they are supercharged, right? That is kind of what I'm wondering about specifically in regards to working with that in a helpful way. Yeah. Thanks.
Yes. So the big thing about, say, anything charged is to let it run. But again, we want to let it run in a way that's healthy. So like with, again, so say, for example, if I was with my teacher and so much light came into me and it brought forward, say some energies of rage within me, of just like I'm so angry. There's so much fierceness here, or fury, or or judgmental thoughts, or whatever it is. Again, I would just connect to that energy intimately, but also intimately, energetically, but not on the level of thought. So the problem with aspects of self, aspects of ego, is so often they want to come out our mouth. And say someone really upsets you, and let's just have some fun here. Say someone on the retreat really upsets you. The story in the mind is, I need to talk to that person. I need to straighten them out. I need to tell them why they are wrong, and I'm going to let them know. Whereas, so instead of doing that, because chances are you'll put your foot in your mouth and you'll get in trouble. One of the things that I learned to is like this energy that's like wanting to come out of me, that the grace was shining on and trying to work on, but maybe didn't cook it fully. And I still got like this punchiness to me, or this aggressiveness or aggro-ness. That's where I'm going to hop in the car and turn up the music, or I'm going to go out and run, or I'm going to race my bike and put on some, like no effects punk rock or something crazy, and just just like let it all scream in my ears and let it work out through my body, so that, again, so that I don't get myself in trouble. And I will say this, that I used to have this dance that would happen to me often, especially my first marriage, where, I'd be on retreat, I'd be feeling just extra holy and divine. And as soon as I came home, my wife, partner at the time, she'd be angry because I was gone on retreat and she was home with 2 kids, and she'd give me 2 kids. The kids would act up. The wife would yell at me, and I just like lose my temper like right away, just like, like, why is this all happening at once? And so I'd fall apart, and then real quickly I'd be like, hey guys, look, Daddy's sorry. I've been in silence for a week. And all of a sudden, I come home and everyone's yelling at me. You just give me a little slack, give me some space. And sometimes I might have to blow up. They might have to blow up. Or, normally they'd blow up and then I'd blow up and then I'd go out and like walk the block, maybe 5 or 10 times. Or at that time I lived way out in the country, just walk out in the desert and then come back and get a ball and like kick the ball with my son or whatever. And then it would all kind of come together. And so sometimes, like even within a family system or in relationship, sometimes we just have to, just vomit a little bit and just be like, and even if we don't even say any words, but just be like, you drive me crazy, and just let some of that energy move. And then afterwards, what you find is kind of like after that all empties out, allowing yourself again to be held in peace, inviting the human you to be held in peace, the world to be held in peace. And a big thing that I learned to do was just to forgive myself for being human, forgive myself for having a shadow, forgive myself for having emotions, forgive myself for being less than holy, forgive those around me for not, it's like you're on retreat and there's this beautiful container. You go out into the world and the world's like, hey, I'm not a retreat, I'm a crazy world. And so, not being angry at the world for not being heaven, and so like a big thing is softness. And I think it's really important to have some just dead time after the retreat. And by that I mean where you're not connecting with anyone or anything but you and nature. Because within the space of nature allows for wildness. But in modern society, we don't have any space for wildness. And for me, it's important, just to go and run the body in a wild way. And just to let some of that steam out, let it out. And the thing that many people have to be careful with after retreat is sometimes the shadow after retreat is, hey, everyone, I'm so holy and you're not. And I need to tell you that and remind you that. And that's a sickening one. I've been on the receiving end of that one a lot. Like people coming home from retreat tell me how holy they are. I'm like, okay, you're kind of being a jerk. You got to be really arrogant. So that's one that we have to be careful of. And if you go out into nature, normally nature will humble you enough before you interact with other humans. And then the other one is just when light comes into contact with ego, and especially deep-seated egoic desires and drives and that type of thing, can create just a lot of pressure there. And normally, as soon as we step out of the retreat container, that pressure wants to release in its old habitual way. But if we have some downtime in nature, that same energy can release just simply through the physicality of moving the body versus having it, be acted out through addiction. And so, like say, for example, if I'm teaching a retreat by the ocean, the first thing I want to do after the retreat is to run, go to the beach, take off all my clothes and run and jump in the ocean and just feel like the coldness of the Pacific Ocean and just scream wild, and just like, you know, and then come back, you know, and sit in the sun and, you know, then walk the beach and just like talk to no one and completely unplug. And like that type of thing, I found incredibly healing versus, you know, getting on the phone and talking right away to my family or to friends, or you know, going out and getting ice cream or whatever it is that people, you know, chase after. And so again, I hope something that was helpful for you. Yeah, yeah, good, good. Okay, let's see here. Marianne, are you here?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Marianne.
Hi. Hi, Greg. Thank you for the retreat was amazing, really amazing. I wanted to talk a little bit about the first night where my heart basically came out. And it was, I want to describe the way it felt to me. It felt like, like 5-year-old me came out
Yeah,
and was like, hey, and just, exactly, with the smallest ego of a 5-year-old, right? And just very much me.
yeah,
And I was up all night and I was just so happy. And I thought, wow, this is like taking a drug, but this drug is better than any drug. And there are no side effects.
yeah,
I thought that would be funny. And I spent most of the night, it was like my ego was here, like it was like a piece of me. It's hard to describe why I felt like it was a piece of me, and the ego was talking to my heart and asking all those questions.
yeah,
What are you going to do when the rejection happens? What are you going to do with that problem you have, that other thing when you get triggered? But what about this? What about that? And it was just,
yeah,
going off, and my heart was responding, and it was so amazing because obviously that was me, but it was like, wow, wow. And
yeah,
most of my response was, you don't even care about that.
yeah,
You don't even care about, and all of that. And it was amazing. And then today, life happened, right?
yeah,
And bam, 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 there's my ego trying to fix all these things that seem like it's converging on me. Like
yeah,
everything is going wrong and it's scrambling to fix, fix, fix. And I was just struck. I was struck by, oh, I was so open and now I'm so closed. And that's where I stopped. And I was like, this is why I keep running away from this, this.
yeah,
And, you know, um, obviously, there's not like a nice little wrap up to that story and then everything's great. But
yeah,
it definitely was amazing. And I'm really grateful to have had that experience. It's like, wow, yeah, that me is still here somehow
yeah,
after all that time, after dampening it down for so long.
yeah.
So I just I don't know if you could say anything about that. You know, I kind of experienced the ego as like a piece of me, like hanging off of me, talking to me. I don't even know if that makes sense.
Of course,
Probably not.
it makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Thank
makes
you.
perfect sense. Yeah. So, Marianne, let me ask you. So, if you were to describe your heart or your childlike self, what's that like? Okay, hold on a second here. I think you got muted.
Sorry, I muted myself. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, my childhood self is it's such a energetic and powerful and just fun loving,
Yeah.
laughing at everything. I
Yeah.
found joy in everything.
Yeah.
And I always wanted, I always had like a good heart, like, joyous and giving
Yeah.
and assertive too. So there is individuation there, assertive and, you know,
Yeah.
just that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, a great question for you to play with is that childlike self here? Like, is that joy here now? Is that quiet playfulness? Is that here now? And I encourage you just throughout your days just to notice, like if you find yourself serious, like sometimes I look at you, Marianne, you look so serious, you know, I'm like, geez. And the thing is I know that seriousness is not your nature. It's not your nature. It's not. There's this playful exuberance. And so a great question, like, you know, you say you had the big experience, whenever that was, a Friday or Saturday night. And then just to ask, say, Sunday night, like, is any of that exuberance here now? And the thing I invite you to do is just to gently invite awareness to acknowledge that some of that playfulness or that joy, or just a quiet lightheartedness is here now. And the ego may even say, oh, but there's a lot of seriousness, there's a lot of heaviness. And that's okay. It's okay. You know, the ego is just going to acknowledge that. But what I want you to do is just to turn to that gentle sense of lightheartedness. And just notice what happens when you invoke it, when you pay attention to it, when you acknowledge it. You know, there's this old teaching that whatever awareness rests on grows. Like whatever you stay aware of, that thing will grow. And I'm not telling you, you know, to completely ignore the ego or the part that's suffering, but rather just to notice, like, oh yeah, that lightheartedness is here. And the ego may say, well, it's only just a little bit here. So okay, but again, is it here? Yeah, it's here. And see if you can see it and acknowledge it and admit it. And as you do so, you'll notice it'll just gently begin to grow. And eventually, that lightheartedness, the more you pay attention to it, it will become an aspect of consciousness that's in the forefront instead of in the background. It'll be in the forefront. And so anytime we experience grace, or we, you know, in a sense, remember what we truly are, the challenge becomes, can you support that and bring it forward? And again, we support it and we bring it forward by giving it time and attention. This is very different than grasping at. Because sometimes people say, oh, I had this big heart awakening, but now it's gone and I want it back and I can't find it. And, you know, that's grasping. But you have a big heart awakening. You say, well, what made up that heart awakening? Oh, there's a lot of love here and lightheartedness. Okay, can I feel any love now? Oh, yeah, I can feel a little bit of love. Can I feel any lightheartedness? Oh, yeah, I can. And again, just paying attention to that and opening that door. And what you'll see is, even if you can only acknowledge like one little teeny sliver of lightheartedness, if you focus on it, you'll see there's a doorway there that you can open to. And again, it's just very gentle doorway, just paying attention to it and being with it. And then it starts to open and grow and grow and grow. You know, it's just like a garden. If you have, you know, like a bunch of thistle in your garden and you pour water on it, the thistle's going to grow and be big. But if you don't water the thistle, if you water the other plants, you know, eventually the thistle will just dry up. It's like, I'm not sustained here. You know, and so awareness is like water. And I encourage you to water this aspect of self. And, you know, life does this to us. Like we're these kids that we're so bright and full of spontaneity. And then you're told you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to finish this way and that way and this way. But like this thing, that's not you. You know, you are more like, like full of light and energy and aliveness. And we want to honor that and invite that forward, the true you forward. So anyways, thanks for coming forward and sharing.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Yeah, of course. Good to see you, Marianne. It's so nice to have you. You know, I'll just say one last thing is, It was almost like this last year. I felt, I felt your consciousness like disappear a little bit, and then at some point a couple months ago, I felt you come forward again, and I was really happy to have you come back, and so nice to have you. So nice to have you. Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's hear from Jacob. Hi, Jacob. Are you here?
Hi. Yes. Hi.
Hi. Good to see you, Jacob.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. I definitely resonated with what the question Richard spoke about, and yeah, just obviously, when we have this profound shift, or we step into like a higher vibration or get into alignment, I've noticed in my life there's that tendency to like sabotage that, like whether it might be with food or with going on my phone, maybe hanging out with certain people. I'd notice that it would go away.
Yeah.
And obviously I've gotten better with that over time, but I'm interested in maybe your opinion on, is there other forces that might be at play that don't want us to, say, step into this power, that it might not, it might be linked in with the ego, and there might be some unconscious patterns that come up, and it's a egoic sabotage, but maybe, I've noticed that there might be some outside forces too that link in with that, and they try and maybe play with your urges. There might be sexual urges, there might be food urges, they might be coming in the example of thoughts, to try and pull you back into that lack, to pull you back into that seriousness. And I've definitely observed that there's definitely something else at play sometimes, that it's not always me, it's not always something that I need to heal. That there's a power. I'm not sure if you've heard about the demiurge, or they talk about in certain scriptures, and I've heard some certain people, but just more in my experience, I've seen, with people in their lives as well, they're just always getting sick, or there's these limitations that they put on themselves, and they have all these stories that come, and they have these profound, they have amazing, outside worlds that they're living, but internally they're getting all these stories and all these things that kind of hold them back, that limit them from experiencing life fully. And I guess it comes in and out with me, and I'm quite on top of it. But when I do, like when I say go back to family, or if I go back to, say, there's an old familiar self, I notice it will come back in a lot more, and if I am feeling that beautiful, like, I'll sit, I'll meditate, I'll do 2 hours qigong, yoga, meditation, and then I'll come out of my room and my mum will be like, hurry up, come and eat, or something like that, and it's like just kind of snaps you straight back out, and it's like, I got to come out and live that. But I definitely have practiced to bring that essence with me out into real life as much as I can, and being super aware of what pulls me out of it also, what pulls me out. And there's many things that comes across in, but we have to find that balance, and we have to still live these human lives. Try and live it with as much power as possible. So if you can maybe play on that.
Sure. Okay, this is good, because I think Richard might have been hinting at that, and I might have missed that. So thank you, Jacob. So there's two great forces in the universe. I've spoken about this a lot. Aurobindo often referred to these as the force of habit, and then the force of evolution. And the force of habit is absolutely necessary. Like, if we didn't have the force of habit, like our cells wouldn't, stay together. Like, we'd just be blobs of flesh that would just like melt all over the place. But like say the cells, say, for example, in your skull, like they know, like I'm a bone cell. And I'm supposed to bind to other bone cells. I'm supposed to stay in this group. I'm not supposed to go over here and become a skin cell, because, in a sense, like that's what cancer is a cell that doesn't follow, the habit that it's supposed to. And so we have this in tribal dynamics. We have this in family systems. Like a very common one is like people, they might be in their 20s or their 30s, and they go home, they see mom and dad. Mom and dad are treating them like they're 14 again. And so there's forces in the family system that try to keep everyone in the same pecking order, the same power dynamic. This happens in friend groups. And it's actually quite unsettling. I can even say this about like the Sangha that I was in with my teacher. We all kind of looked at each other as equals. But when I started having big experiences and started to say step beyond just being a student of my teacher, David, I upset the power dynamic. And there was a big part of me that had to walk away, because the people in the group weren't necessarily being so nice to me, or they didn't know what to do with me. They're like, what is Craig? Is Craig a student? Is he a teacher now? Like what? Like, how do we relate to him? And there's a little, jockeying for control and power, and people would want to come forward and like fight with me and challenge me and be kind of nasty to me. And again, this happens on all levels. It happens on playgrounds, like kindergarten. It happens in colleges and universities, on sport teams and friend groups. It happens in, gosh, someone was just telling me the other day, they're at some big, like cutting edge, high tech corporation, and people are playing these games as, one guy's getting more power and stepping into a bigger aspect of himself. The rest of the guys are trying to stab him in the back and kind of pull him back. Say, no, you're not going to be the boss now. Like you're gonna be with us. We're the worker bees, And so this is something it's in the collective. It's in the collective culture. It's in the psyche. It's in the collective psyche. And it even happens down on the level of cells, where there's just a habitual nature of like, hey, we just keep repeating the same thing over and over again. You brought up this question of sabotaging, and oftentimes we sabotage ourselves, like we shoot ourselves in the foot to keep ourselves, at the same tribal level that we were previously. Because if you start to be a very bright light, say within your tribal community, and you step into a place of authority or autonomy or power, again, there's a good chance, your old friend group will reject you or make fun of you or attack you. And so sometimes we have forces that, where we sabotage ourselves to keep ourselves safe within the tribal consciousness. But again, like we have to ask ourselves, well, what kind of life do I want to live? Do I want to live a tribal life where I fear rejection? Do I want to live a habitual life where I never grow or change? Or am I, someone who's more like a maverick? Am I on the cutting edge of society? Am I on the cutting edge of human potential? And while that may sound arrogant to say that I am the evolving edge of God, it's actually a ridiculously humble thing to step out and say, yeah, I'm going to be like Joan of Arc. And I might get burned. I might have everyone try to pull me back. And there should be some healthy level of fear there as you step forward. The fear will help you to question, like, am I being too arrogant? Am I going too fast, too quick? Can I really stand in this? And then, of course, you can have a conversation with your heart and say, yes, I am divine. I am holy. I will stand in this. And as you do so, as soon as you make that step and say, I will stand in this, you should expect the forces of nature, which is really different than like demonic forces or evil forces or forces trying to hold you back, but just purely the forces of nature, purely the force of evolution will challenge your new step and your new authority. And there's an intelligence to this, because when you step into something great and you're challenged, and let's say you're challenged and you fail, what it does in that moment is, if you are awake, the challenge points to your weakness. And it just shows you, hey, you need to do a little bit more work here. You need to add a couple more building blocks to make this experience more foundational. You need to get more stable in this in order to own it. So even if you challenge and you fail, the beauty in that is you learn. You learn where the weakness is. You learn where the weakness is. And if you're challenged and you take the step and you meet the challenge, and again, your job is to stabilize there. To stabilize there. And this is how evolution works. It's inherent in life that there's evolution and there's growth and there's this challenge, but there's this inherent structure to it that forces you to ground and to integrate and to develop strength within this new thing that you're experiencing. Because many of these things, especially like if it's spiritual insight or a spiritual awakening, to awaken spiritually, I'll just say this, is actually quite easy. What's very difficult is to live it, to live the awakening in form, in matter. But when you rise to the challenge, and even if you fail, when you get up and you try again, when you get up and you learn from your experience of failure, there's a nobility about your steps as you walk forward. And it begins to build something here, an unshakableness of experience and of presence. And it's actually quite necessary. Quite necessary. I can remember when I first started teaching, right away, the Nondual police showed up. And I'm just be blunt here. It was old white guy after old white guy who were really smart, really philosophical, really clear in their non-dual philosophical understanding. And they would just challenge the hell out of me. And I didn't know what to do with them. I was like, why are all these old, crusty old men who spent too much time reading the Sargadatta, why are they challenging me so much? And it was as if God had sent them. That God had sent them. And I can remember even confessing to one of my teachers, Adya at the time, and I said, look, I don't know what to say to these guys. And Adya just said, look, just speak from your experience. That's all that's required. And as I didn't engage them in like that tribal warfare of them trying to put me back in my place, and I just spoke from my experience, a very funny thing happened is, they started to melt, like their crusty, grumpy, policing nature, their attacks just started to melt. And they realized, oh, like this kid, he knows what he's talking about. And then they became, allies for me instead of critics. Allies instead of critics. But, when I look back at that time, I was actually quite scared when they'd show up to my satsangs and really give me a hard time. But as I met them with love, and I just stood in my own ground, and my voice would even be shaky as I'd respond to them. But I would stand my ground and I'd speak my truth. And I'd win them over with love. And then, those aspects of self that were insecure within Craig could actually be like shored up with strength and power. And so I hope there was something there that was helpful, Jacob. Yeah, yeah. Good to see you, and nice to have you here. Yeah. All right. Okay. I had a question that came in. Here's a question from Hans. Hey, Craig, how old are you? It's a good question. I believe I'm 46 or 47, something like that. My whole life, people have said to me, Craig, you're like an old man trapped in a little kid's body. And that's what I felt like, because I felt like I came to this world as an old man, just in a young kid's body. So anyways, okay. Here's a question from Nick. Let me just say one thing too about my age, because sometimes people give me a hard time about how young I am, and less so now because I have a lot of gray hair and a gray beard. But the gift that I was given by God is I met my teacher when I was just a kid. That was the gift. And so I had 2 decades where basically I apprenticed with a master. I just spent so much time with him. I realized that I spent, more time with my teacher, and, like over the course of one season than most people have with a spiritual teacher throughout a lifetime. And so I was really gifted to have a teacher just hold my hand and just spend, huge amounts of time with me. And he really brought forth something great for me that I'm able to share. Yeah. And I just feel honored and just overwhelmed with gratitude for having such support. Such support. Like sometimes I meet people and they say, I'm a student of so-and-so. I'm like, oh, wow, what's that like? And they're like, well, I talked to him once, back in 1986, I met the teacher. I'm like, oh, you spoke with your teacher one time. Okay. Was really different than the experience I had, where my teacher was on speed dial, and I worked for him. And so anyways, I was overwhelmed by support is what I'm trying to communicate here. This is from Nick. Hi, Craig. I have a question about Kundalini awakening. I experienced mine in the midst of a dark night. I thought that after the intense Kundalini awakening, I'd never have another problem. That has not been my experience. I often hear that Kundalini awakening is an invitation onto the path, and sometimes just the beginning. What are your thoughts on this? Yeah. It's different for everyone. So my teacher Adya, his Kundalini didn't come until almost the very end of his awakening process. And for me, I had already had a number of shifts in consciousness. And then the Kundalini period was like this final blow. And I thought it was going to be something quick and work itself out. And boy, it took a good, 5+ years to really integrate. Once it started to open up, and it gave me great difficulty. And if I really look at it, I could see that the Kundalini probably came on 10 years prior. I just didn't know what it was. I knew it was a lot of light and a lot of intensity. I knew it hurt really bad because my body wasn't able to receive it fully. And so, if I was just really clear, like from start to finish with the integration, it took about 15 years. 15 years. The first 10, though, it just showed up as just kind of pressure. And I didn't even really know like what was going on. But when it burst open, then I realized what it was. And it was like 5 years after it started really flowing for it to fully integrate. And now, the experience is one of spaciousness and light, and there's this flowing river in my spine. That's quite, quite blissful and liberating. Some people, kundalini wakes up and then goes dormant. Some people it awakens during the dark night, like you described. Sometimes it's just the beginning. Sometimes it's the end. But it doesn't matter what happens in other people. The great question is, well, how are you responding? So this thought, I thought I'd never have another problem. I want to burst everyone's bubble who has this thought that awakening of any sort leads to a problem-free life. This is not the case. Not the case. As long as you have a human body, there'll be pain, there'll be growth, there'll be sickness, old age, death, just like the Buddha taught. There'll be relationship difficulties, just because you start to wake up doesn't mean everyone around you will be awake. Like I'd laugh. I live in a house where, sometimes I feel like, I need to walk around with boxing gloves on just to block, all the blows that are coming at me from, all the ladies in the house. Just they use me as a punching bag sometimes, and so growth will happen here on planet Earth, whether you're awake or not awake, whether kundalini is flowing or not. Growth will happen. For me, the question is, with kundalini, am I blocking the flows of energy? Are there veils, veiling the chakras, which in turn blocks the energy and creates pressure in the system? And can I do all my healing work? Can I do all my healing work, whatever that step is in each moment? That's really the question, is can I surrender to the work that needs to be done? Can I surrender to the next step on the path? Yeah, that's the question. How long will it take? That's between you and God. And the real shift is the more sincere you give, the more sincere you are. If you give yourself to the path with great sincerity, it'll go quicker. I've worked with people who they've struggled with it for 3 decades. And I looked at what their life was like, and maybe they didn't have a teacher to guide them. Maybe they were doing practices that weren't helpful. Maybe they turned to addiction or something that caused great pain and shut down the energy. And so, again, it's like, what kind of support do you have? What kind of healthy effort are you making? Do you know how to surrender greatly? Have you done your healing work, your trauma work, your shadow work? Because all those things create veils. Okay. Looking at the time, I better hurry up here. Someone wrote, "Hey Craig, what does light revolting look like?" That's back in response to Richard's question. So sometimes when light revolts, it looks like you're not sleeping. It's a common one. Or say if you fight with grace, grace might keep you up all night. And, because like in the end, God's going to win the battle. God's going to win the battle. I don't like to battle with God, but if you fight with grace, Like if you fight with God's agenda, God might throw you off your bike, throw you off your horse, throw you off your your position of power or whatever. If you're really egoically arrogant, thinking you know better than God, God might, fire you from your workplace. Take you out of a relationship you don't belong in. Or just energetically light revolting. If you have a strong ego and you fight with the energy, the light may just turn up the heat and just really cook you for all hours of the night. It did that with me. I didn't sleep for seemed like months at a time. Here's a question. Hello, sir. Thanks for the teachings about tribal dynamics and habit. A lot of things make sense now. I have a question. Yesterday, I chanted the mantra related to Lord Skanda and experienced a radiant energy in the heart. Can you comment on that? Yeah, I don't know what to comment. You call upon Skanda, and Skanda hears your call and comes into your life. If you develop a relationship with Skanda, you're going to have a lot of light in your life, a lot of light in your heart. To me, this is a beautiful thing. My question to you is, do you welcome Skanda? Do you love Skanda? You don't have to love Skanda. There may be a different God that you connect with. But when you call for Skanda and he comes, he's showing you that he's willing to be in your life. And for me, if a God showed up in my life or a master, that shows me that there's something powerful here. Something powerful. And I'm going to, connect with that one. I'm going to connect with that one. I want to see what this relationship is about. And so I encourage you to chant more and call on Skanda and see what he has for you. Sometimes a master will bring you a great blessing or a lifelong relationship where the force of Skanda will be a light that lives through you and can actually merge into your consciousness and become an aspect of your being. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, one last question here. This is from Teresa, and Teresa's really struggling. She says she's in great pain mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. And, basically, she wrote me a long email, but basically it comes down to, well, how will I make it through this? How will I make it through this? And so, Teresa, sometimes we're dragged through hell. And our job is simply to outlive hell. Sometimes our job is to make a step forward. Sometimes our job is to call upon support, like the last question asked, like calling on Skanda, developing a relationship with the great masters, developing a relationship with your angels, where you're calling forth support. You're calling forth love. You're calling forth strength. And we're inviting that strength to give birth in you and as an aspect of your nature. Sometimes when we get beat up by life, we can spin out a little bit in victim mode. And it's important not to fall into that trap, but to know, Teresa, that you are a child of the Most High God. You are a child of the Most High. That you too were made in the image and likeness of God. So the same greatness that is in Christ, that is in the Buddha, is also in you. And it's going to be a part of your job is to figure this out, to discover this, to realize this. And so I encourage you to reach deep within and find the brilliance within you that has outlived every painful experience. To find this light, to find this love, and to bring it forward. To let your most great and noble heart lead you and guide you. This is the challenge for you. This is the challenge for all of us. For all of us. So anyways, so nice to sit with you all. Look forward to seeing you all again Wednesday night. A reminder about the Kundalini group, if anyone's interested, that's Friday morning. And I'll see you all next Sunday too. And I'm already beginning to think about the next retreat. Starting to think about an in-person retreat, but with still the continued silliness of COVID-19. I'm just going to have to really sort that out. Whether I can do something in person or online. I'll definitely do online again, but it would be nice to connect with you all in person. So much love to each and every one of you. Deep bow of respect to everyone, and especially those who attended the retreat. Good night, everyone. Bye for now.